Okay, let's start with refuge and Gandelagema, and then we really have to start with the definitions. Okay, so it's important to understand why we do this recitation at the beginning, for example, the Gandelagema and so forth. And Geshe says, I really insist on doing this. For example, in the past in Tibet, you had people who would study, and when you study, you open up your text and you have to read a particular passage. And they would read it and not understand it. And if that was the case, they would pause the study, and what they would do is they would do something such as, for example, offer tsog, or make some incense offerings, or offer a mandala, and so forth. Why would they do that? Because with all these activities, they would accumulate some merit. And having done this, they would go back and into the book and read again this passage. And now they would find that they were able to penetrate that which was so difficult to understand before. So it makes a difference to when you accumulate merit. It actually helps you be successful in whatever you want to do. So this is the reason why Geshe is saying, it's incredible benefit. And that's why we do all these activities. So what we did last week, we explained, we gave the definition of the color, and we explained that this is the definition of a color for two reasons. First of all, because we say we have the certain and equal perversion in terms of the 8 doors between definition and object defined. And secondly, because there is a relationship between definition and object defined. So since we mentioned the 8 doors of perversion last week, we engaged in different exercises or examples. And as you remember, it was quite easy to find cases of things that were not necessarily that. So we found many of examples where there was no perversion, but we find difficulty giving an example of something that was pervasive. And Geshe said at that point, I indicated to you that in order to easily find the pervasion, it's very good to consider the relationship of interdependence between the definition and the object defined. Try to find interdependence between two objects. All right, so remember that whatever we discuss and whatever we explain applies to everything. So it doesn't just apply to colors and the definitions of the colors. If you understand it on the basis of the example of the color, the definition of the color, then we don't need to explain again the same thing for every case that we will discuss. So as we say here, we apply similar reasoning. You understand it for one, then you apply this to the rest. Okay, the other thing that we said in terms of the color, we gave a classification. It was a twofold classification. So we said that we have the root and the secondary colors. So in terms of the root colors, we identified and we say we only have 4 root colors: the blue, the yellow, the white, and the red. So that means that if you're looking for any of the root colors, you have to look among those 4 colors. Don't look anywhere else for the root colors because you will not find them. The root colors are only 4. So if we are discussing root colors, it means we're only referring to these 4 colors. Don't try to bring in other colors, or don't try to look for the root colors in any group outside this one. Okay, so since we say there are only 4 root colors, we can say that if something is a root color, it is pervasive, it necessarily must be one of these 4. So if it is a root color, it must either be blue or yellow or white or red, and the other way around. If it is any of these colors, it is pervasive that it is a root color. So if it is blue, it has to be a root color. If it is yellow, it has to be a root color, and so forth. So Geshe says, I'm saying this to you, but this is something that you also have to examine. Okay. All right. So we say that if something is a root color, it is pervasive that it must be any of these 4 root colors. Okay. So we say here that there is pervasion. We say that there is pervasion, and that means that we cannot find an example where there is no pervasion. If you could find an example that doesn't fit in this pattern, then you could say there is no pervasion. Okay? So to give you an example, if I say, if something is a color, it must necessarily be white color. So someone would say no, because I can come up with examples of colors that are not white. I can come up with possibilities of colors that are not white. So in this case, I would say there is no pervasion, because I can find an example or I can find a possibility. That is not it. Okay, so we know how to posit the definitions of those 4 root colors. So we can say that which is suitable to be blue hue is the definition of blue. That which is suitable to be yellow hue is the definition of yellow. That which is suitable to be white hue is the definition of white color. That which is suitable to be red hue is the definition of red color. Okay, we know how to posit the definitions for each one of those root colors. All right, okay, so we are clear about the 4 root colors. So let's look at the secondary colors. We have a list of 8 secondary colors. They are number 1, lightness, number 2, darkness, number 3, cloud, number 4, smoke, number 5, dust, number 6, shade, number 7, mist, and number 8, sunlight. Okay, so the first one is called lightness. So we're looking at the color of lightness. You know, when, for example, the sun rises and everything, there is light everywhere. Okay, so we have this lightness as a color. The second one is darkness. So in the evening, when the sun disappears, everything becomes dark, isn't it? So this is the darkness. The next one is the cloud, which is exactly what it means. You know, when it rains, you know, we see clouds gathering in the sky. So this brings a particular quality of color. The next one is smoke. It refers to the smoke that rises when we start a fire, when we burn something. The next one is dust. So dust, you know, imagine that you have wind blowing and, you know, all these dust particles, they are lifted and they circulate in the atmosphere. The next one is shadow. So imagine a person standing up and the sun hitting from the front. So at the back, you will have the shadow. The next one can be translated as mist, or sometimes it indicates just the color of the sky itself, right? So it's a particular quality of light that we have before, like, you know, early in the morning in the sky. And the last one is the sun, or you would say the rays of the sun, so sunlight. As for the definitions of those things, you just have to add the words suitable, that's suitable to have the hue of lightness, that's suitable to have the hue of darkness, and so forth. Okay, all right, so there is one thing here that we need to be very careful about. We say that we have a secondary color that is described as being the cloud. Okay, but we also have a white cloud, and the white cloud, we must understand, is classified as a root color. Why? Because it is white. Okay, therefore, we have to be very careful when we accept, for example, the cloud as being a secondary color, just like that. Why? Because this category of cloud, we also have white clouds. And if it is a case of white cloud, it has to go into the category of the root colors. Therefore, for all of those secondary colors, we have to use some additional words. And by using the additional words, we clarify that we're talking about a secondary color, not a main color. So, for example, we have to say the color of lightness, that is secondary color. The color of darkness, that is secondary color. The color of cloud, that is secondary color, and so on and so forth. So add the words that is secondary color, and in this way you clarify it. Otherwise, you might lose in a debate, because someone might come and say, okay, let's take the color of the white cloud. It follows it is a secondary cloud. It follows that it is a secondary color because it is the cloud, the color of cloud. And you might say, yes, I accept. Yes, I agree. And then the opponent will say to you, Tsar. And Tsar, you might have seen this in debate, means you're mistaken. Like you are finished, you're dead in the ground. You should be ashamed of yourself. This is a mistake. All right. So if you only know that cloud is a secondary color, when the opponent is leading you like this, take the white color, it follows it is secondary because it is cloud color, right? If you don't know this exception about the white cloud that must be classified as a main color, you might make the mistake. And you say, yeah, I agree. And at the end, you lose the debate. Okay, so we have to be aware of this. No. Okay, so to be safe, when we give the definition of the secondary colors, that definition have to say suitable to be such and such a hue that is a secondary color. So we have to have these additional words, and once we place it like this, then we should have a clear and sound definition. Okay, so as you can see here, we are giving a list of 8 secondary colors. However, it is safe to say that any color that is not any of the 4 root colors is a secondary color. So you understand that there are actually quite a lot of secondary colors, right? There are many, not just 8, okay? There are many secondary colors. One, going back into the etymology of these words, we have the root and then we have the secondary. And this should bring us back into the analogy that you have a root, and from the root you have different branches, secondary branches that are separate from each other, and they grow and we can identify them as separate. So here with the colors, we have the 4 root colors, and out of this root, we have many separate branches or secondary colors coming out of this. Okay, so one might wonder, okay, if there are so many secondary colors, why do we have here a list of 8? So this list of 8 secondary colors comes from the sutra. The Buddha has indicated those 8 as being secondary colors because there was a particular purpose, there was a particular need. So for example, someone would think that because the cloud is so far away up in the sky, that is not a color, or they will be doubting whether that should be counted as a color or not. And the Buddha has said the cloud is a color, it is a secondary color. So this is how we end up with this list. So when we talk about secondary colors, first of all, Geshe says, because we have an endless variety of all these colors, so you will find a great variety of names. Perhaps the most useful thing is to keep a couple of things into mind. Many times we talk about pale, like pale white, pale blue, pale red, pale black. So what happens here is that you have an original color and you start adding white. So once you start mixing white into that color, the color becomes lighter. It becomes pale. Okay. On the other spectrum, we have what is called, for example, dark red, dark blue. Okay, so when you hear that term dark next to the color, it means now you have the original color, but you have mixed some blue, some black paint in it. So if you add black into whatever was the original pigment, of course, it will become darker. Okay, so you end up with maroon and dark blue and dark yellows and so on and so forth. But apart from those things, there are countless colors and there are countless names. So Geshe was saying, I don't even know those names. I don't even know those colors, right? So obviously people who do a lot of painting, people who deal with colors a lot, they have a bigger vocabulary of those. So, you can learn those names or for specific secondary colors if you're interested or if you use those things a lot. Anyway, Geshe says, I stick to the main colors here. I know those well. So Geshe was saying I have like a brocade here, my table, and I can see there are a lot of colors. I can say with certainty which one is the white, the red, and the green. The rest, if it is not a root color, you just say everything else is secondary. Okay, so Geshe was saying, we have said that in terms of the root colors, there are only 4, the blue, the yellow, the white, and the red. Okay, so question to the students, how many root colors are there? And if one asks the further question, like tell me what are the 4, then you have to enumerate them, the blue, the yellow, the white, and the red. Okay, so we are sure we have decided there are only 4 root colors, right? Okay, so as we say in the monastery, we study Dura quite a lot. We look at different texts, and I would say that almost all the Dura texts, 99.9% of the texts say that there are 4 root colors. The blue, the yellow, the white, and the red. However, there is one Dura text that is called the Tsondro Dura. And in there, it mentions the color black. And it seems to include the black into the root colors. And therefore, it seems that the presentation of the root colors is expanded into 5. So we have the 4 that they appear in all other texts, the 4 that we have already mentioned. And in addition to that, we have the black. Now, some people doubt this or, dispute this, and they say, in Vinaya, when the Buddha taught about different types of concentration, so concentration, clarifying color, for example, he only mentions 4 root colors. And those who believe that the root colors are 5, they say, at that occasion, the Buddha only mentioned 4, but that doesn't mean there are 4. There are actually more than 4. There are 5. And they justify this because they say, for example, when we do painting, the people who do painting actually they mix the black and the blue, or they can use the black instead of the blue or the blue instead of the black. And therefore, when you use this color, and the color is used for painting, isn't it? they have the same purpose, the same function, right? They perform the same function. So it was just a case of not counted as different. However, they say the black should also be in the list. Yeah. So there are those who say that the black is like the king of colors. And the reason for that is because the black is such a strong color, right? If you add black into something immediately, it changes. And therefore, Geshe says, I think I can see, I can see why people say that there are 5 root colors, counting the black in that group.
Ta gar lagi imbas tanga nga yue lagi imba shimashi mes lagi imbas ta je kugorisda.
Okay, so now to the class. All right, what is your position? Are you going to say there are only 4, no more than 4? Or are you going to say there are 5? So you have to decide, have to take a position here. Okay, so what is the black? It seems the black is not a root color. Are you going to accept the black as a root color or not? Okay, so Geshe was saying, remember what we said, that black and blue are almost indistinguishable, or you can substitute one for the other. And if that is the case, wherever the blue goes, you could also take the black there. And then we have this other expression that says the black is like the king of colors. And if that is the case, it is very likely, like there's substantial reason here to say that it is a root color. Okay, so what do you think? Okay, so as I say, if you follow the Dura text, the majority of the Dura text, and we just go according to what the text say there are only 4 root colors. But then, we brought into your attention that comment that we find in Tsomtro Dura. And Tsomtro Dura brings about this question about the black. So what it says there is that actually the black is there in the list. It's just that the Buddha in that particular occasion did not mention it. Just because the Buddha didn't mention something in this particular occasion, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, is it? And since it is the case that when we do the painting, the black and the blue have the same function. They bring about the same result in the painting, right? There is very strong reason to say that actually wherever you put the blue, there you can also classify the black as well. So there's strong reason we hear today to accept that there are 5 root colors instead of 4. Okay, so as we say, on one hand, we have the statement that say the root colors are definitely 4, like the number is certain. There are only 4, no more than 4. Okay, and then we have this comment in Tsomtro Dura that says, no, they're not 4, they are 5, because we need to add the black into that list. So how are we going to reconcile these two, right? The thing is that we have to find a way of analyzing what is the color, what is main, what is secondary color. Okay, so we have the example here in the text that says, for example, if you mix blue and yellow, we know the blue and the yellow, both of them are root colors, isn't it? So it says, if you mix blue and yellow, you end up with a secondary color, which is green. Green is their branch, their secondary. Okay, so when you read this gives you a very clear indication that the green is a secondary color because it is the branch, the secondary, that is produced by mixing these other 2 colors. All right, so far we agree. And then it says, similarly, if you mix blue and red, you get the secondary color of black. All right. Okay, so if you go like this, you would have to, the same logic, right? You have to accept that black is a secondary color. But we all have colors, isn't it? And what we have to do is we have to go there and play with the colors and mix the colors. So we know that if we mix the blue and the yellow, definitely we're going to get green. Okay, we agree with that. Okay, if you mix though the blue and the red, do you get black? I don't think so. So I don't think this statement is correct. You go home and you play with colors and tell me what color you get when you mix the blue and the red. Okay, so Geshe was saying it's very important that we actually analyze, because if you don't really examine this, you might come into problem, because Geshe was saying, every monk from a very young age is trained through the Dura text to say there are 4 root colors. How many are the root colors? There are 4 root colors. But then suddenly you get all this information about black, and now, there is the doubt or, new area of interest, of investigation. What about black? All right. What is happening with black? So we say it's very important to mix colors and see what you get out of this, because if you have root colors, when you mix 2 root colors, you get a new color, right? A third color is produced, but that third new color that you get is not the same as the root colors. If you mix the blue and the yellow, what you get is green. Green is not a blue, no yellow. It's a new color. So because it's a new color that is not one of the 4 main colors, we say it is a secondary color. Okay, so the case here is, okay, try to mix blue and red and see, do you get black? Because if you get black by mixing these 2, then certainly black would have to be classified as a secondary color. Or again, try and see if you will get blue, because there was this argument that the blue and the black, they act in the same way, right? So when you paint, you get the same result. Okay, so we really have to investigate this. Geshe was saying, I find that argument that is mentioned in Dura that says is just the case that the Buddha did not mention it in this occasion, but just because he didn't mention it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Geshe says, I find this a bit unclear, or it makes me doubt what is he trying to say with this example. So Geshe was saying, I find it hard to let go of the classification of root colors as 4. I think there are 4, not 5. So Geshe is saying we have really to be very careful, because if we say we're going to increase the list of root colors from 4 to 5 by adding the black color, actually there are faults that come from that. The faults really are attributed to this text, the Dura. Okay, because in the sutra, the Buddha has not mentioned black. And the other thing is that we have, as we say, black is a color that we can experiment with, we can analyze. And if the black is a color that is a result that comes from mixing 2 other colors, then it's very clear that it is a secondary color. Otherwise, we have to be very strict or very clear with this, because otherwise anyone could come now with any color and say, let's add this now to the group of 4 root colors, because it exists, but the Buddha didn't mention it, and so forth. So the way that we analyze is, if that color we're discussing is the result that has come from mixing 2 other colors, then it is clear that it is secondary. It's not a main color. So Geshe says, I don't care. I'm only going to say there are 4 root colors. Okay, clear.
카도 이나 저야 카도 임베 캡스 라바 이나 책 말어 왔다 Kadoina, Saya Kadoin be Kabres Lana, Pajaranzo Lenji Jabe on the Chablagi, Machablagi Basta.
Okay, let's look at something. If something is a color, it is pervasive. In other words, necessarily, it must be root color. Okay, Geshe says, what do you say to this? Do you say there is pervasion or do you say there is no pervasion? Yeah. Okay, so obviously here we have a possibility of that shows that there is no pervasion. And you can illustrate this by saying, for example, the green color of Buddha Amoghasiddhi. So it is an example of a possibility, an example of no pervasion in this statement. Yeah. So what we're saying here is that the green color of Buddha Amoghasiddhi is not a root color. It is a color, and therefore it is a secondary color. So if we say that something is a color, there are only two possibilities. It will either be the root color or it will be secondary color. Okay, so we say the green is a color, but it's not a main color. It is a secondary color. Okay, so we say that we give the answer and say the green color of Buddha Amoghasiddhi is a secondary color. So how are we going to prove this? How are we going to establish this? And we say, because it is the color you end up when you mix up blue and yellow. So once you say it is the color that comes from mixing two other colors, this actually tells you that it is a secondary color. So just as we proved here that the green is a secondary color because it is a color that comes about from mixing two other colors, combining these two other colors, we can use exactly the same logic in order to establish that black is a secondary color, because black is the color that comes from mixing the red and the blue. If it comes from mixing two other colors, it is a color, but it is not a root color because it has come from combining two other colors. Therefore, it is a secondary color. All right, so it seems we have clarified, we have decided about black, unless someone wants to talk about purple.
If I can share, the current colors when we do printing is called CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. That is in the modern days based on white color papers. But when we look at ancient days, they would probably use bamboo and wood when they write. The black color is used to enhance the colors in the modern days, but in the ancient days, because we use wood and bamboo, hence the colors is darker. That is why they need to use white to enhance the color. So the new age is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Cyan is blue, and the ancient days, white should be the core color. Hence, I think both are correct.
Yes, Geshe says, I agree with what you say, because definitely the writing medium is different, what we have these days, from what we had in the past. Because Geshe was saying in ancient times, we had to use, let's say, the leaves or the bark of the trees in order to write, okay? And if you used the black pigment, the black ink, to write on that, you could not clearly see the letters. So, for example, Geshe was saying, I know that there was this practice in Tibet that we had to apply a specific substance on on the bark of the tree that we were using. So we had to apply this substance to make it brighter, almost white. Okay, not 100% white, but to make it much more pale than it was. And when we got it to a certain degree of whiteness, then we would draw the lines, and then we would use the black pigment, the black ink, to write the letters, because unless you prepared the bark like in this way, you would not be able to read. But these days we have white paper and we print in white paper. So it's a different, obviously, it's a different consideration. All right. Okay. So we gave I think we have come to an agreement about the black color, that it is secondary because it is the product that comes from mixing two root colors. Okay, same way that the green is secondary because it comes from mixing the blue and the yellow. So if the green is secondary, it means the two original colors that it came from, the blue and the yellow, must be root colors. Okay, in the case of the black, we say the black is secondary because it comes from mixing the blue and the red. Okay, therefore the two original colors from where it came, the blue and the red, must be root colors. Okay, so now let's mix something different. Mix two secondary colors and then you get a new color. So that new color is certainly secondary. It's secondary because it has come from mixing two other colors. But what about these other two colors it came from? Are we going to call them the root colors? Because they are the origin, they are the originals. What do you say? So if you say they are root colors, it means we are increasing the number of root colors, isn't it? Are we going to say it is the branch of, it's the secondary of secondary colors? All right. So Geshe says, I don't care where the debate or where the logic goes. Just keep in mind, there's blue, yellow, white, and red. Anything outside that is secondary. Okay, and black is secondary. Okay, so you see, it's very interesting, this process, because initially you become and you have great clarity. You say, okay, there are only 4 root colors. Anything that is not the 4, everything else is secondary. But then you start analyzing, all right? There's different questions, different logic. And then you start doubting and you say, oh, now wait a minute, maybe this should go into the root colors. So this is as if you lose your position, your root position about only having 4 root colors when you start examining. All right, we will stop here for tonight.